Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. The title is From the Unconscious Static Illusion Towards Conscious Dynamic Truths. There's a lot of dimensions that I could speak about for this episode. I would say to just get this out of the way, I wanted to talk about Hegel's absolute idealism. And if I can explain this, it'll make things easier. You see, guys, Hegel, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, he is the one who introduced the concept of the absolute to modern philosophy. And before him, there was Martin Heidegger, and pretty much we can say there was a phase in the evolution of the philosophical mind on this earth that people were considering the absolute. So Heidegger says the absolute, in quotations, is the spirit that which is present to itself in the certainty of unconditional self-knowing. So Hegel was fond of this. Now, there's different views, but there's this person named Friedrich, how do I pronounce it? Copleston. Now, in this quote, guys, from Friedrich Copleston on Hegel, this is really the main thing. There's an incredible interpretation of Friedrich Copleston of Hegel. And he says, logic studies the absolute in itself. The philosophy of nature studies the absolute for itself. And lastly, the philosophy of spirit studies the absolute in and for itself. What that means is logic is for the outer realms. Logic is for the inner realms. Studying nature is for the outer realms, how the world is being for itself. Logic is, we can say, how the world is for itself, how the self is for itself, and how both what is for the self and what is for the world is for the idea of spirit, the idea of the witness, the breathing witness, the unknown breathing witness. So just to say the quote completely from Friedrich Copleston, logic studies the absolute in itself. The philosophy of nature studies the absolute for itself, and the philosophy of spirit studies the absolute in and for itself. Okay. Sorry guys, excuse the additional noises. So just the main difference between these three that Frederick Copleston was pointing out, logic, nature, spirit. We can say these are the divisions at least Frederick Copleston is seeing. That means when I think about what is absolute for the world, it's for itself. It has nothing to do with me. The absolute nature of the universe, I'm just a tiny fragment, just this tiny glimpse of this massive system. So the absolute, the idea of the absolute, and I forgot to actually read this. Where was it? I saved it here. Just hold on, guys. Oh, there we go. So absolute idealism is, I can say, a focus of what's a way? I can say it's the absolute position of the sum of all ideas in the moment. At least that is my definition. But here it says, where is it? Absolute idealism is Hegel's account of how being is ultimately comprehensible as an all-inclusive whole. And in German he says das Absolut. Hegel asserted that in order for the thinking subject, human reason or consciousness, to be able to know its object, the world at all, there must be, in some sense, an identity of thought and being. Otherwise, the subject would never have access to the object, and we would have no certainty about any of our knowledge of the world. Excuse me. Yeah, pretty much. It's like saying we're trying to wonder an absolute position. Guys, let me tell you, a lot of philosophers, what they have done is they have seen life as a character in a story, and they've wondered it from that position. Do you know? So that means there needs to be a thinking subject. There needs to be a character, and there needs to be the world, the setting where the character is in. Now the whole thing is whether the identity is just limited to our inner realms or the identity is limited to the outer realms. It's like wondering what the purpose of Jupiter is, the planet Jupiter, It doesn't necessarily relate to the thinking subject. It's for itself. It's on its own merit, It has a meaning as it is rather than as it should be. So I would say absolute idealism is pretty much the ideology requires an absolute position to be meaningful, or can be comprehended in an absolute position. Now, towards the topic. So pretty much I wanted to introduce this absolute idealism from Hegel, just for the audience to keep that as a side point. It's incredible, really. Hegel was the one to introduce the word absolute, the term. That's the cool thing about philosophers. They don't just use language, they update it. At least the continental philosophers. The analytical philosophers don't have the courage. don't have the courage to see if language can mean something else. There's a strange precision required for analytical philosophy, but when it comes to continental philosophy, the unknown is not being dismissed as if everything can be known. You know, isn't it strange that Socrates, which a lot of Western thought is based on, says the only true wisdom is to know that you know nothing. And people, when they see that they know nothing, rather than noticing that, in some sense, they want to endlessly know. Sometimes I feel like, really, what education in a world so big? Even though I personally have received an education, but I'm saying, like, when I think about it, it's like the universe is too big. It's like our telescope. It's like we're studying the dust on a telescope and making that our ultimate certainty. When the system is prone to change, it's like in a changing system, excuse my language, who has the balls to say one sentence can hold everything? You know? It's too big to fit into a couple words on an empty page, to be honest. The system, it's too multidimensional and big to just be linguistic, you know? And that's the biggest challenge of analysis, to notice its flaw and then attempt the multidimensional. Because think about it, let's say you are like, okay, it's just this world here, you know, and you're just using the information from one room. Imagine you're in one room of a mansion and you want to figure out the outer architecture of the mansion. Imagine. Imagine you're like, you know, imagine a cosmos. Imagine you're in one room of this cosmos. I am telling you, we can try to give it shape, but the shape is going through us first. The meaning of the outer realms is being filtered by how the outer realms places the meaning in our inner realms. I did something really interesting, guys, today. I went out and I sat down because of this coronavirus situation. It's been a very indoor year, but I'll say, like, I went and sat down and I looked at people. Like, I was sitting with a coffee on the grass and I was looking at people on the sidewalk and, you know, just moving around. And I had a notebook in front of me, and let me tell you what I wrote. Aside from the title of today's talk, I wrote, what are the facts about existence? What are things that, regardless of the inner realm's opinion, it stays? And I was looking at everything for a moment, you know. There's this thing I do, I would say it's like, it's a technique. It's a technique, I don't know how I figured it out. It was just, like, I think it came to me as second nature. But what it is, you know how, like, a person is, let's say, playing a video game or something, and they pause the video game to go do another activity. I realized my whole life is like a video game, and somehow I found a way to pause it in the middle and notice something else. I would say it is the sensory perception pause. The pause of the senses into being an idea. Usually when there's that pause, and hopefully I've tried to hit the bell in these talks, but if that pause is there, that means it may be strange, but I'm talking to actually, for the audience to notice their silence. To notice that silence is the breeding ground of all sound, and stillness is the breeding ground of all movement, I will tell you. That means I would say, hey, if I use this mansion metaphor that I said, imagine you're in one room of a mansion, but from one room we want to see all the rooms. We have like from one room of a mansion we think we know how the outside of the mansion looks like. I would say this mansion metaphor from Hegelian absolute idealism it would be that the mansion is one mansion, one absolute mansion. That means the person may be in one room. Reality may be divided between logic, nature, and spirit, you know, or the known and the unknown and the witness. There was an attitude that this actually, I don't know, I think it was from my cultural program. It was something that I think it wasn't a part of my character, but I noticed it and consciously incorporated it into my character. And it was this thing that when I was young, I had a bunch of experiences where I knew the outcome of a situation, and I told like a group, and the group didn't listen. And the same outcome happened. Do you know? That means what I saw, so I can tell you I've had moments where I have distrusted my intuition. Do you know? Really distrusted myself in the moment, even though I could see the right answer. You know? Then I realized, no. It's not enough to assume the world outside knows what is best for the world inside that only you can see. This is the reality of it. Dear listeners, you must listen to yourself. And if you can't listen to yourself, you never knew who you were. You never knew what the species was. In the wastelands of the void, in the deserts of the void, we are seeing the mirage of the personality. That means what evolution has done has been the most instantaneous evidence that matter becomes a mind. Now, because we see the visible first, the invisible comes after. But there are some schools of thought that they say, how am I seeing the visible? And they notice the invisible presence. That energy and attention are the same. So I was wondering about what is very evident instantaneously about reality. And I'm going to evoke the Aristotelian causes and also share some other causes. I pretty much looked at things and I was like, okay, when you look at people walking outside, first thing you notice, let's say you're in I don't know, let's make this a playful thought experiment. Let's say you're in extraterrestrial, okay, let's say Earth became so advanced that we went to another, Earthlings became so advanced that we went to another civilization less advanced than us, and from their sky in stealth ships, we were watching that other extraterrestrial civilization, underdeveloped extraterrestrial civilization advance, right? So in the same way, if we were to do it with ourselves, if we were to visualize, if we were observing ourselves, what would it be? We would see that we are creatures that are directing our energy. That is really the main difference. Animals direct energy, human beings direct energy. But human beings direct energy in a more multidimensional context than animals can fathom. It is only the human being that brushes its teeth. You see, that's the added dimension, the added levels of concern to how the moment, again, as yesterday I was saying, the concept and context are present. The way we're designed in this world right now, conditioned at least based on the mainstream, is that we think we have to be a singular concept all the time, and as the context change, they make the concept suffer. The person thinks, I am just this, and then the world changes, ideas changes, even they change, and they're like, oh my God, I'm not just this, and so it just changes. So when I was looking at the causes, first of all, the four Aristotelian causes. Okay, here. I looked at people and I'm like, what's the purpose of being a creature? Movement. Okay? Then I wondered, what's the purpose of being a creature? You know, and I'm like, the shape. We are here to be a certain shape, to be a certain part of the moment, the form. Then I wondered, what is the purpose again of these creatures? And I realized it's an elemental existence. It's a relationship of oxygen. So I went from movement being a purpose of being a sort of just whatever creatures move, whatever creatures have a form, whatever creatures have a sort of substantial constitution, do you know? And specifically the four Aristotelian causes are, I mean, what I just said right now in the list I made this morning on this piece of paper is different than the Aristotelian causes are like you're looking at what the substance is made of, you're looking at the form, you're looking at the efficiency of it, which is suggesting if there's an agent. What that means is it's like, why was a cup designed? What's the purpose of a cup? It's not the glass, which is the substance cause of it, the material cause of it. It's not the shape of the glass, which is the formal cause of it, but in the third Aristotelian cause is because somebody is going to drink water from this. It was made for someone. Do you know? Pretty much destiny falls into this, I would say. or sorry, not destiny. It's just that there was a source. Oh, sorry, agency. I confused the last two. In the efficiency, it's that something created the cup. That's its purpose because it was designed. Something did it. An agency. Then the final cause is the destiny of the object. This is made so that the purpose of this moment is that so it becomes somebody drinks from this cup in the future. You can say the final cause of the final Aristotelian cause of the human species is that, I don't know, Terence McKenna, for example, suggested we're the intermediaries for a technological human effort of continuity. That means it's as if nature made human beings so AI could explore the universe without us. Some notion like that, as if it's like we can't avoid, as technology increases, so will the dimensions and the depth of desires. That means the children are going to their parents and being like, can I have a tattoo? You see that in the film, like I don't know what movie it was. Like the child was like, can I get a tattoo? And the parent was like, it's like, no, you can't. This is ridiculous, you know. But now I saw it in a more modernized way. Imagine you're a parent and your child comes home and it's like, everybody, all my friends in school are robots. I want to be a robot too, you know. You see the absurdity, but to those future generations that want to be robots so easily, it's not going to be absurd. So aside the four Aristotelian causes, I actually added another one when I was in this morning. I was looking. These are the ones I made on my own list, aside from the Aristotelian causes. I think two of them are similar. So movement, form, substance, and what is another, you can say, very evident thing about life, we feel it in an unknown way. It's not just the senses, it is the outcome of the senses, which is the emotion of the person. So we are made to be, and as we are being, there is the opportunity to do. Because when I think about my mind, it has never moved. My body has moved. My sense of, when I think about my awareness, as if the body is the wax of a candle and the mind is the light of the candle, that means I can be honest, I have moved a lot on this planet. But in every journey, in every moment that I find my conscious waking state, the waking state's content changes, but consciousness is not an object. Because it is not an object, it is the unknown mystery. That means, isn't it fascinating? Let's say person A and person B are talking in the park, And person A and person B, they're talking, they're accepting each other's individual position, but the ideas of who each person is not physical. My name is not a physical phenomena right now. The ideas I have on what the world is, what I am, they're not physical, but they are present. They're accessible in the inner realms as subtle design. That means I can close my eyes and visualize an apple pie hovering in the air, but I can't pick up that apple pie and start eating it. It exists to a subtler landscape of sensory reception. Something else is there. You know, that means the five senses aren't all of it. I think that is primarily what Terence McKenna, this scholar, was trying to say when he said there's another tenant in the room. That means the meaning of this reality is not limited to how these 5 piano keys are the only keys on the piano. The melody of life is the mystic's calling to realize that you're in this world once. Who can you possibly wait for? The who's are not even physical. That means every person I have been judged by, ever, from the beginning of my life, in any situation, it has literally been an invisible judge. Do you see what I mean? The invisible judge is how we as a subject are not an object. It's a subject living. We are living as a subject in an internalized story. Then we are, in accordance to that story, relating it to the outer realms. So we are between worlds. It's like the lords of karma are looking at their... Okay, now for the third battle, the title. Let's try to wonder what an unconscious static illusion means, you know? Illusion means temporary. Static means not changing. Unconscious means we don't know what it is. It's like it's form and cause. It's formal cause and its material cause and formal cause are unknown. That means that's the cool thing about the idea of the soul. So many people drawn to this idea on this planet. Why? Because it is the mystery of the mystery. It is the only thing you can do when you have watched all existence to be one moment. The renunciation of not the world, but the way the senses are interpreting the world. An unconscious static illusion means the unconscious is everything. It's the sum. The unconscious is absolute being if we choose to see an interconnectivity of intelligence. What does that mean? That means if we are the thoughts of a higher dimensional organism, that organism's true reality, not just its thoughts, is the unconscious. It's like a neuron wondering, where am I? You know, that brain is the unconscious. Okay? And when I say it's a static illusion, I'm trying to say, like, we are conscious, we are dynamic, okay? And our truths are based on movement and noise. So the absence of movement and noise is the static unconscious if movement and noise is how we're defining our conscious being. So if consciousness is based on sound and movement and animate behavior, the unconscious is static to that behavior in comparison to that. And some people may think it should be the other way, where it should be an unconscious static truth, where it's as if it's never changing. It's as if God doesn't have to do anything, but man has to try so hard to please the universal mind, it seems. I would say whoever listens to these talks, see these talks as branches, and anybody who feels they can add a branch to these talks, feel free to share in the comment section, in the chat section. Yeah, the void is the unknown. Just noticing emptiness, it's like, oh my God, there's emptiness here. Who knew? Who knew there was so much emptiness here? And our whole lives we're trying to be fulfilled, not realizing the universe is like extremely empty in some sense, visually. Because if we are saying reality is the life that we're born in, just to think about this, then if consciousness is the reality of birth, then the unconscious is an illusion to the one who is alive now. What does that mean? That means when you're in the room, the idea in one room of a mansion, the idea of the mansion is like an illusion. What mansion? It's just this room. But when you go step outside of the mansion and you look at the mansion from outside, then you're like, how was being in the room the only truth? We have this person, this is one of the most incredible arguments known to man. And it's Frank Jackson's Mary's room argument. Mary's room. So the idea is Mary, if I remember correctly, Mary is like this genius scientist, and she's in a room and she has access to all scientific, like she can totally understand everything from analytical a material level, scientific level. She can comprehend it. Now the issue is, the way now Frank Jackson builds the argument is he says, imagine Mary is in this room, but she only sees black and white. And instead of the windows of this house, there is screens, computer screens that only show the outside world in black and white. And the idea is similar to kind of Plato's allegory of the cave, where Mary can't see a world of color yet. She doesn't even know the world has color. She's been seeing it black and white. And then Frank Jackson says Mary leaves the room. She discovers the color red, for example. And when she discovers the color red, she realizes what she thought the world could only be was not what the world could only be. That means the moment she saw the color red, it wasn't a black and white universe only. One of the most unique feelings, I would say, one of the most, I would say this emotion is an ally, to me at least in many moments of my life. There's been certain emotions, I could tell you that they've comforted me in some sense. The emotion, just like how a person can suddenly feel sad, there's certain moments where the person doesn't have to per se conditionally attain happiness. I mean, think about it. We unconsciously get sad. Indirectly we get sad. Do you know? But we're consciously searching happiness. Searching for happiness. That emotion that I would say is my ally is the emotion of nothing to lose. There is literally nothing to lose here. That is the secret of nature. Man can choose to cry and laugh, yet nature just goes forth. And what it is this is really, I would say, pure druidry. This would be the druids kind of like metaphysics, where it's not about being a human being in a human world. It's about being a being in a world that is being. And everybody has hidden gifts. It's just levels in the unconscious. You know, I laughed. I had a dream that was incredibly unique and creative. The dream. And I woke up noticing that, okay, so I felt I had the ability to have dreams that are this creative. Why can't I have that now? There was this Zen master named Chung Tzu. One day his disciples, let's say in his temple at the top of the mountain, they're like Chung Tzu. They see Chung Tzu early in the morning while the sky is blue. He's just frowning, as if he's in some existential bafflement. And they're like, Chung Tzu, what's up? And Chung Tzu's like, I dreamt I was a butterfly last night, guys. Now I don't know if I'm a Zen master that's a butterfly, or a butterfly that is a Zen master dreaming that it's a Zen master. As if the experience in the dream was so conscious and real, there was an inseparability from the dream state and the conscious state, conscious waking state. So that's the mystery of our world, really. We are wondering if the inanimate is here first, then the animate, or we're wondering if the animate is here first, then the inanimate. If the animate is here first, you're most likely religious, metaphysical, and the purpose of life is how it's alive than how it's conceived. If the inanimate came first from the animate, then the animate is set in a situation where it has to endlessly wonder. It's like the person. Okay, let's say the person wants to know if they're intelligent. There's two ways. You're trying to see how you are not intelligent. You are just an object, or you're trying to see how intelligent you are. Aim for the animate. Aim for the living. I will tell you, those people in any phase of life, in any state of mind, I will tell you, if you live for life, you live for life. Because the inseparability of the life movement cannot die. What it means is, before death comes, human beings have to ground themselves in their mind's body. It's no longer about freeing the mind. It's realizing we are a mind, you know? To not fear the fact of how we are a design in the moment. It's like two cinema screens. There's an inner cinema and there's an outer cinema. The outer cinema, physical. The inner cinema, beyond the senses. Because, guys, think about this. I think very few people consider this. How much analytical philosophy requires the senses not to be changed. That means the sensory perception has to be defined first. We needed language on ourself. We had to name ourself before we could engage or be open to a realm where names can be used. This world is beyond belief, because whatever you believe is a small container, as if the human being is a USB drive, and how many terabytes you think this cosmos could be. A Googleplex of terabytes. I don't know. Because technically we have infinity on a small scale. It's like having Wi-Fi on your phone is strangely giving you access to infinite information, or infinite structures and models of information. You know, the meaning of life doesn't have to be so complex. There's this moth that he goes to this doctor. A moth. This is a story, guys. This moth goes to this doctor. It's at night, and he knocks on the doctor's door before the doctor's office is closed. You know. And the doctor opens the door, and the moth is there under the light. You know. And the moth looks at the doctor and says, "Doctor," and the doctor's like, "What is it?" You know, and the moth is like, "Doctor," you know. The moth is like, I've been, having problems with my kids. My kids don't love me. Do you know? And the doctor's just listening to this moth say this. And the moth says, you know, the moth says, "My kids don't love me. Do you know, I've disconnected with them. It's as if I don't exist in their minds anymore, you know." And the doctor's listening, and he says, "My wife doesn't love me anymore. My life is reducing me, as if she no longer sees me, you know. She no longer cares for me," and all this, you know. And it's like a divorce is happening and all this. And the doctor's listening to this moth say this, and the moth says, "I don't know, you know, I've reached a point where it's as if, like, sometimes I think about my life and I just want to, you know, skydive into a candle flame. Like, I don't know, I can't take this anymore, doctor," you know. And suddenly, in the middle of this moth sharing its suffering, you know, the doctor is like, "Moth, I don't get it. I understand your suffering, but why did you come to me? I'm a medical doctor." And it's like this intense pause. And the moth says, "Oh yeah, because the light was on." That means a person can entertain realms. A person can think they are suffering in a complex way, but I'm telling you, you might suddenly see your existence is occurring very simply. This world is what is it? It's like we have an I, we have a subjective I, and we have an objective I. We have an I we have a way that we receive the world as an object, and we have the way we receive the world as a subtler level of movement, a sort of river of thoughts, or inner cinematic linguistic film. Because this is how I know, guys, the inner realms is here. Because anyone who's ever written a book has read a book, or read anything, has been staring at ink on a page. The meaning seems to be from within. Okay. how far will man realize nature? Will we care about just stuff in space, or will we come to learn to care for the space that is required to be there before intelligence is animate? I would say that for the first time we have to open a new branch, and I would say this could be neo-spirituality. That the only way the past can be known is from the future. The present becomes separated from the future and the past. They should be two parallel lines, but they're being seen as the same line. When you look at bees, like actual bees, if you put like I don't know, like cup of iced tea out in the open and you look at it, and you'll eventually notice bees notice, you know? And if the bee comes into, I had this cup and this bee comes into the cup, this bee falls into this juice in this cup I had on a table once, and the bee falls, and the bee's leaves, the bee's wings, they fall on the water, do you know? So the bee can't get up from the surface of this, I don't know what it was, iced tea or something in a cup, right? And I remember there was a pen there. I just put the pen in there, do you know? I mean, a better thing I could have done was just pour out the whole cup, but I just put the pen in there, and it becomes a bridge, and the bee climbs the pen. And the bee leaves. But then the bee comes back. And even though the pen was there in the cup, the bee falls into the water again. And it's as if, like, regardless of how many learning moments, there is an instinct, there's a nature where we are going in accordance to its tune. An instinctual nature. As if the bee was designed. It didn't matter if it had knowledge or not, it was designed to behave that way. And we are designed to communicate. We are designed to endlessly seek the new. The novelty is like pollen. Of course, the term novelty is a term popularized by Terence McKenna. Terence McKenna is a scholar who had noticed a very unique relationship between the Tao Te Ching and time. Really what it is the world, the mind gives an ability to see endless dots, and life becomes connecting these dots. So if somebody says, what's the meaning of life? I think a good answer could be to connect the dots. Just that. 3 words that encompass all possible efforts of creaturehood on a rock in the middle of nowhere. You know what it is? People don't realize when Carl Jung said the collective unconscious, very few people, I think, even in maybe in the Jungian circles, even understand what he meant. He did not. Some philosophers, they are responding to future events in their philosophy. And when Carl Jung was bringing the idea of the unconscious, the collective unconscious, for the first time he was tapping the shoulder of the species and being like, hey, there is so much more. There is so potential for so many types of autonomous psychic content. Based on how you see yourself as a self, the world has stood separate from you. We're just creatures getting by. You know, if we drop our idealism, if we drop perfection, we'll all be at a neutral state. That means the whole issue of why an advanced civilization hasn't been built yet, do you know? Civilization is advanced, but the efforts towards to create a system that's not perfect, but it is so ahead that it would be perfect to us. There's some people, when they want to do something, they're like, all right, I gotta have 100% effort. Then there's some people who are like, forget the percentage. Just go forth until it changes. We have to care for the unknown or we'll never know it. And to care for the unknown means not to be solidified in language. You know, we can say, I'm going to say, we can say an advanced civilization, an advanced civilization with advanced communicators let us say, just like water, we have ice, you know, the solid state, the liquid state, and the gas state. We can say, when it comes to communication and interpretations of reality, it is very similar. Those people who believe language is truth, doesn't matter if you're secular or non-secular, both are committing the error of thinking language is truth. I'm that person out of all the people here saying language is the imposter. Language is what is causing war. But it is also what can cause peace. So those people who are, let's say, locked into an ideological program, here's the thing. If you there's an experiential side to the idea of believing something, and then there's just an ideological without any check, like as if somebody tells you there's a purple elephant standing behind you and you haven't seen it, so you believe. Okay, there's that kind of belief, and then there's somebody, it's like you got to believe in yourself to take a new step. Sure, there's that. So experientially, belief is not, I'm not talking about the experiential side of belief, I'm talking about the ideological side of belief. So those people who say the world is, imagine like there's a cup of, there's an iced caramel macchiato here in front of me. So this iced caramel macchiato, imagine I'm like, I believe the whole universe is shaped like an iced caramel macchiato. It's like people ask me, what do you believe in, Mr. Within? Ice caramel macchiatoism. Oh man, language is hilarious. I'll tell you this. So the solid state of communication is belief. The liquid state, I would say, is sorry guys, let me just compose my inner realms for a second. Solid state, I would say language based on materialism. The material condition is defining the possibility of the mind. In the liquid state, it's like semi-known, semi-unknown. So solid state is knowledge. I believe in this. Let's say in a specific way. Not just it's when I say knowledge, I mean it's in the known. So sensory-wise. Solid state of communication, belief. Liquid state of communication, curiosity. Gas state of communication, experiential certainty. So from sensory beliefs to a semi-known and unknown state of mind, the curious state, let's say, the wondrous state, and then the experiential actuality. That means the gas state of communication is silent communication. But okay, let's actually say like these are the three categories. We have a solid state of communication, a liquid state of communication, and a gas state of communication. Okay, let's just treat communication like a substance for a second. So all the solid state of communication, even if I could re-evoke the whole imagery again, solid communication would be communication that's vocal. Actually, I can't use this filter of this substance filter if I think about the content of the communication. But if I think about types of communicators, maybe that's going to make the model easier. That means there are those who communicate by just what is certainty, a state of we have a state of ideological uncertainty, then ideological uncertainty, semi-ideological certainty, non-ideological certainty, and then we say the gas state is non-ideological certainty. Or sorry, let me say it's like these are the moments when you look at the live stream and the numbers have dropped, Okay, let me try this again, guys. The solid state would be ideological uncertainty. The liquid state would compose of semi-ideological uncertainty and plus experiential certainty. Perfect. Experiential certainty. And the gas state of the communicator, type of communicator, would be pure experiential certainty. So yogis are actually, their silence is not silence, there's a communication going on. But it's like the yogic mind, the mystic, is going through experiential certainty, The scientific mind actually has no choice but to be in a domain of ideological uncertainty. Or actually, no, sorry, let me say it like this. Religion is just bringing religion into this sudden. Some people, they communicate through ideological uncertainty. I would say science would fall into, there's a 50% ideological uncertainty. We are giving the meaning. Like the idea of man is man-made, and then there is like we are actually experiencing reality, and we can actually conduct the experiment. You know. One of the biggest questions is how accurate can experiments be in a changing world? And what is the implication of growth? That means it's like if we want to have the same sort of, let's say science is, let's say the universe is like a person, you know, like a person walking on the street. Now that person, you see the universe, let's say, when that person is young, and then you see that person when they're old. So you cannot have the same evaluation on the shape and form of a growing process where the outer realms changes. So science would be this. I mean, science. Of course, science is a method. You know, everything in this life, people are just attempting methods of living, really. But I would say my whole point is, do the constants change? And if what is being kept constant in any sort of ideological system is prone to change, then the meaning, the pillars of the ideological system are breaking, are being washed and broken, you know, washed away. And that seems to be the mind's mountain climb, to go from ideological uncertainty towards experiential certainty. And ideological uncertainty, we can say, is a sort of unconscious static illusion. There we go. And experiential certainty is the conscious dynamic, dare I say it, truths. In certain schools of mystical thought, or I would say it's the general Bhakti yogi, the universal Bhakti yogi, Where you see, guys, in this life, we can choose to compartmentalize, categorize everything, and linearly articulate our way through. Articulation is like mining, like it's the prospector's way, you know, and it is very necessary for individual survival, the survival of the individual. It's very important how you process your environment. I mean, that's the whole thing, you know. We had to, you can say our ancestors had to look at the movement of leaves on a hyper attentive level to see if an animal is going to jump out, you know, or not. That means we don't realize. The yogis say concentration, but we have such an incredible attention. And what it is if this attention updates, it's literally what we're trying to do is the linguistic simulation, the linguistic simulation is covering. It's like a parking lot where our phone doesn't have good signal. When you can discern and notice you were never a thought, then the signal, the antenna signal increases. It's as if you stepped out of the parking lot of belief into, excuse me, the direct experiential attention of the realm. We're all trying to pilot to the next unknown. That means here comes the great question. How can an unknown universe be known? Only by the unknown. That means you have to become unknown to yourself first before you can see a new way of having access to a new way of knowing things. And that unknown is, like they said, renunciation, but it was like hilarious because they took it too seriously. The world takes itself so seriously, then when it notices the simple, thinks it's enlightened. But true enlightenment is responsibility, really. That's ability. That's the only ability man needs, to find the capability to go forth and respond. That is why the world is here. It's a living moment. We are in a living moment. We are literally 8 billion creatures in a living room, cosmic living room. We're in a room in the cosmos alive, in our own room of how far the species has dared to look beyond itself. One thing is clear, just like how bees are essential it's as if we have to build a hive mind. This term I don't know who was it, but somebody in the chat section said the term hive mind. I had the concept of hive and mind, but I hadn't linked them yet. And somebody said hive mind, and I was thinking about that is technically the advanced civilization. That's what we're waiting for. We are waiting for our hive, for the glory of not a human empire of discrimination, but we want to use our minds as if we are the most advanced intelligence in this universal sector. We are in the front lines of manifestation. Do you know how many armies have not arrived in manifestation yet? And so when a universal sector becomes, you can say, soil, new soil, new plants emerge. The karma of the planet is good. We have good planetary karma. You can say the more incredible and beautiful Earth becomes, the more incredible and beautiful beings will arise. It's all about what channel on the radio we want the species' ethos to be, the world story to be. If we declare ourselves as weak, meaningless, we have failed before we've started. Kind of Wayne Gretzky he says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if we see meaninglessness, we have missed 100% of the shot we didn't take, because how could we if it's meaningless? If you suddenly feel you're just atoms hovering in the middle of nowhere, there isn't that much meaning, but it is the ability of the intelligence to even know that there is an unknown. That is the greatest gift, that there is more. Not to just see, but to be. That means we as embodied creatures have this notion. We have this hold on, yes. That we can only change what we do. What if you could change how you were being by noticing how you were not being? There's a feeling I get. This is something strange, but usually people get bored when they look at history. I remember there was a point in my life where I was bored by history. Like history class was torture. But then it changed, my mindset changed, and I got overwhelmed. Can you imagine being on the shoulder of a giant? That's what a human history is. It's a giant effort. We are on the shoulder of this giant effort now. Do you know? In a book I'm writing that will be out soon, I share this story at the beginning where I say, imagine 8 billion human beings were in this giant vertical ship in the middle of these oceans where the ocean water is black, and when you look at the ocean water you see stars underneath, but it's ocean water, So it's as if 8 billion creatures on one ship in the middle of unknown waters. And it's as if one side of the ship, some people on the ship have noticed holes in the ship. They have noticed the ship is sinking from one side. Now, my whole point was, what is the best strategy? Either instantly, everybody has to know. Everybody has to quickly run to the other side to let the world know. There's some people on this ship who they see the hole. It's right there. They see the problem. Do you know? And there's some people on the other side of the ship, they can never see the problem. They don't even see the hole. The hole in the ship, the Titanic hole, is like it doesn't exist to them. They're oblivious of what else there is. Very few minds have had an ability to roar back at time. Napoleon, this conqueror, he had this quote. He said, "Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary." That means if you give permission to inefficiency before efficiency, you have been a fool before you could not be. And it is true, you know, sometimes you zoom in into what the world means and it can bother the person. Sometimes you can zoom out and stay zoomed out, and that brings its own things. And the best thing is to pilot consciously. Piloting means, rather than the average communicator thinking they have to only be in a solid state of communication, liquid state of communication, or gas state of communication, the advanced communicator knows that it can pilot between these. Because the advanced communicator is the ultimatum of patience. Those who cultivate patience, they will see dimensions to the world that nobody else can. The patient are honored by the lords of karma. Nature has a mind where, think of it this way, man doesn't know what he's going to do tomorrow, but nature knows what it's going to be because it is being it already. So when man listens to nature, he becomes a chess piece in the eyes of the Gaian mind. And then what physical existence becomes playing your part. As if it was never about the film being, in a mystical sense speaking, the film being an illusion. It's just that the actor is now alive. You go and embody your moment. We imbue life to all that we perceive living. From the unconscious static illusion towards conscious dynamic truths. To build such an advanced civilization where the person didn't have to worry. Can you feel that? Can you feel like how it would feel? Imagine we suddenly realized it was strange. We saw on the world news, suddenly all the leaders of all nations have suddenly chilled out and they've become simple people. We turn on the news and we're like, no way, what is this? What are people's Facebook statuses? And it's that world peace has come. And that 8 billion beings in an instant could find a new greater value that didn't have to have the past bias of the blueprint to be drawn before. That means, what do you do on a piece of paper where there is a structure, drawn with pen? Somebody with a pen has drawn something, let's say a blueprint of something. What do you do with that? You either add dimensions to that blueprint, or you turn the page and start from a new moment with no disturbance, where the mind can trust itself and then build on. You see, the biggest error is to want to live too fast without realizing how time is experientially a value. Aziz in the chat section has shared a quote from Charles Bukowski. He says some people never go crazy. What truly horrible lives they must. Oh, sorry, it's not Charles Bukowski. It's Oscar Wilde, I think. Is it Bukowski or Oscar Wilde? Which one will win? Hang on, guys. Let me look up this quote. I'm pretty sure it is Bukowski. Yeah, Bukowski. There we go. Charles Bukowski. We have to wonder what is accessible to us. Really, intelligence is not having access to a palace of information. It is knowing what to do with information, and the palace naturally comes. I think that's the thing about honor. Honor was inner honesty to how the world has been moving so far. You know, guys, I'm going to do something. Oh my god. My mouse just flew. Okay. So, guys, I would like to go into a quote tunnel of some quotes from this book called Hagakure, the Book of the Samurai, written by Yamamoto Tsunetomo. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says, "A warrior is worthless unless he rises above others and stands strong in the midst of a storm." And sorry, the Book of the Samurai is Bushido. Bushido is the way samurais live. You can say it's their inner discipline. And so these passages I'm saying are from that inner discipline. A warrior is worthless unless he rises above others and stands strong in the midst of a storm. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says there is something to be learned from a rainstorm. When meeting with a sudden shower, you try not to get wet and run quickly along the road, but doing such things as passing under the eaves of houses, you still get wet. When you are resolved from the beginning, you will not be perplexed, though you will still get the same soaking. This understanding extends to everything. Wow. Yeah, so what he means is like, let the inner realms have a determinism from the beginning. Okay. To continue with quotes from the Book of the Samurai. There is surely nothing other than the single purpose of the present moment. A man's whole life is a succession of moment after moment. There will be nothing else to do and nothing else to pursue. Live being true to the single purpose of the moment. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says there's to give a person an opinion, one must first judge well whether that person is of the disposition to receive it or not. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says meditation on inevitable death should be performed daily. Every day when one's body and mind are at peace, one should meditate upon being ripped apart by arrows, rifles, spears, and swords, being carried away by surging waves, being thrown into the midst of a great fire, being struck by lightning, being shaken to death by a great earthquake, falling from 1,000-foot cliffs, dying of disease, or committing seppuku at the death of one's master, and every day without fail one should consider himself. Guys, let me tell you what he's saying, because at that time they had to be warriors. War was a very savage dimension to life. So what had to happen is that the samurai were meditating on trying to have an incredibly inhumane, strong character. So what he's saying here is in the context of trying to develop the strength of your inner realm so you don't get afraid. But it doesn't mean to have the attention locked on this. So when he says meditate on inevitable death, what that means is there's no content. After. So anyways, let's move on. Yamamoto Tsunetomo. Nothing is impossible in this world. Firm determination, it is said, can move heaven and earth. Things appear far beyond one's power, because one cannot set his heart on any arduous project due to want of strong will. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says human life is truly a short affair. It is better to live doing the things that you like. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says, as everything in this world is but a sham, death is the only sincerity. Yeah, I mean, this book was written, I don't know, guys, how many centuries ago. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says it is better not to become acquainted with men and about whom you have formerly had doubts. No matter what you do, they will be people by whom you will be tripped up or taken in. Yamamoto Tsunomoto says light matters should be dealt with seriously. Serious matters should be dealt with lightly. This was the secret to the martial artist that was like beating like 12 people in the battlefield in a very easy way. And the whole point of it was that the inner realms was handling it simply, so there was no energetic disturbance. So again, when you see a complex problem, look at it in a simple way. When you see a simple problem, feel free to look at it in a complex way. These are algorithms to the moment. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says one should make his decisions within the space of 7 breaths. That means breathe 7 times and then decide. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says the deepest love is often hidden. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says, by being impatient, matters are damaged and great works cannot be done. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says there are few people who will make mistakes with fire after having once been burned. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says, in China there once was a man who liked pictures of dragons, and his clothing and furnishings were all designed accordingly. His deep affection for dragons was brought to the attention of the dragon god, and one day a real dragon appeared before his window. It is said that he died of fright. He was probably a man who always spoke big words but acted differently when facing the real thing. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says, by bringing shame to a person, how could one expect to make him a better man? Yamamoto Tsunemoto says, everyone lets the present moment slip by, then looks for it as though he thought it were somewhere else. Yamamoto Tsunemoto says, it is not good to settle into a set of opinions. It is a mistake to put forth effort and obtain some understanding and then stop at that. At first, putting forth great effort to be sure that you have grasped the basics, then practicing so that they may come to fruition is something that will never stop for your whole lifetime. Do not rely on following the degree of understanding that you have discovered, but simply think, this is not enough. Yamamoto Tsunetomo. Even if it seems certain that you will lose, retaliate. Neither wisdom nor technique has a place in this. A real man does not think of victory or defeat. He plunges recklessly towards an irrational end. By doing this, you will awaken from your dreams. Yamamoto Tsunemoto says the end is important in all things. Yamamoto Tsunemoto says, tether even a roasted chicken. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says, continue to spur a running horse. If a warrior is not unattached to life and death, he will be of no use whatsoever. The saying that, in quotations, all abilities come from one mind, sounds as though it has to do with sentient matters, but it is in fact a matter of being unattached to life and death. With such non-attachment, one can accomplish any feat. Great quote. And being unattached doesn't mean ignoring something. Being unattached means having no opinion. So it has actually nothing to do with the thing. It's like, yeah. Yamamoto Tsunemoto says, in the eyes of mercy, no one should have hateful thoughts. Feel pity for the man who is ever more at fault. The area and size of mercy is limitless. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says, it is a principle of the art of war that one should simply lay down his life and strike. If one's opponent also does the same, it is an even match. Defeating one's opponent is then a matter of fate and destiny. So let me tell you, the mentality is greatest effort in the greatest moment. That's kind of like the mindset, I would say. Assuming in war, back in the time, your opponent is also doing their greatest. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says, "It is a good viewpoint to see the world as a dream. When you have something like a nightmare, you will wake up and tell yourself that it was only a dream. It is said that the world we live in is not a bit different from this." Yamamoto Tsunemoto says to desire with one's very soul every second of every day to accomplish one's aim. And actually, one more quote I'll read, two more quotes I'll read, three more quotes. Yamamoto says it is a wretched thing that the young men of today are so contriving and so proud of their material possessions. Men with contriving hearts are lacking in duty. Lacking in duty, they will have no self-respect. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says Bushido is realized in the presence of death. In the case of having to choose between life and death, you should choose death. There's no other reasoning. Okay, that's pretty intense. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says it is said that what is called the spirit of an age is something to which one cannot return. That this spirit gradually dissipates is due to the world's coming to an end. For this reason, although one would like to change today's world back to the spirit of 100 years or more ago, it cannot be done. Thus, it is important to make the best out of every generation. Yeah, that's why we can't make the future look like the past, because it's never going to. You know, this is why the future is going to be its own additional dimension. It's going to be a world in a world that has never been here before. The future is a world on the world, I could say. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says it is better to have some unhappiness while one is still young, for if a person does not experience some bitterness, his disposition will not settle down. Yamamoto Tsunetomo says single-mindedness is all-powerful. One last quote actually, it says, "This is the substance of the way of the samurai. If by setting one's heart right every morning and evening, one is able to live as though his body were already dead, he gains freedom in the way. His whole life will be without blame. He will succeed in his calling." What does that mean? I had a dream once, guys, where in the dream I died. I woke up and I felt a bit empty to myself. That means if you think about as if you were never here, all the things about yourself, about the idea of yourself or the idea you have of yourself, it's like there's nothing there in the spotlight. The whole point is it's like a practice in mindfulness of realizing, all right, emptiness is inevitable, but while we're still around, we can do something, you know. Something that will happen, I think, if the way is sought for, as if the person, if you are already dead, you have nothing to lose. Those people dead inside have nothing to lose. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh man. But I think that pretty much the point is, one is able to, if by setting one's heart right every morning and evening, one is able to live as though his body were already dead, that means you had nothing to lose, he gains freedom in the way. His whole life will be without blame and he will succeed in his calling. That means it's like the ethnocentric filter, if it's just put on airplane mode, then the true piloting begins, yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. That's it for the Book of the Samurai. I hope this episode was helpful, and to live and die in every breath, to realize every moment is the breath of a design. Intelligence could be way beyond the language we have to contain it as a concept even. That means experiential truth cannot be caged by ideological uncertainty, ideological change. There are mysteries not just in front of our eyes, but behind our eyes as well. And that's where the value of life comes, trying to master this instrument of DNA that you are. Shinzu Sasaigo. Thanks for listening, guys. Blessings.